Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, it's Sharon Spurlock from the St. Louis ARC Family Support Department, and I'm really excited about our family Q&A today because we are tackling one of the subjects that personally I struggle with the most, really understanding all the ins and outs of eligibility-based programs like benefits. So we have with us today Kristen Rusbarsky, who has a new role at the ARC. We'll be talking about that. I'm going to just say one more thing before we launch into the webinar, and that is that I'm going to do this in a slightly different format than usual today. As I've confessed, benefits are not my cup of tea. I have a very difficult time retaining the information. So a lot of us are visual learners. So Kristen has created an amazing resource document to help us guide families through the benefits questions process. And we're going to use that form today to guide our conversation. So that form is something that we can share with you later if you like, or when you call us in the future, we hopefully will be a little bit better prepared to answer some of your questions. So without further ado, Kristen, I'd love it if you introduced yourself, and I'd love it if you could tell everybody a little bit about your history working at the St. Louis ARC, because you've made a number of changes with us that have brought you to the place you're at today.
That is correct. Hello, everybody. I am Kristen Rusbarsky. I've been at the St. Louis ARC for almost 2 years now. And before that, I worked at a different agency and then also supporting children with autism. So I have a good experience kind of across the board with people with disabilities. But at the ARC, I actually started as the admin for our CE and AW day programs. So doing all of their paperwork, ensuring that all of the requirements for funding partners are in place, helping with audits, and all of that nature. And then I actually was the special events coordinator for a couple weeks, and then COVID hit. So that kind of went to the wayside. But I was lucky enough to be thought of for this new position. So we're developing a new position at the ARC, which is a coordinator, benefits coordinator. So within the benefits coordinator position, a lot of my responsibility is assisting our residential program with maintaining their benefits. So ensuring that all of their Medicaid is in place, making sure that food stamps are in place. If any questions come up, helping our residents and the coordinators find the answers that they need. And the other part of that is kind of a new position to the ARC, which we're really excited about. And it's been, fun kind of developing it and seeing where it's going to progress from here, is expanding that benefit knowledge to all programs. So at the ARC, as you know, we support people from birth until old age or death, unfortunately. And so finding, how we can really access benefits for everybody that we support, and eventually hoping to be that go-to agency when questions do come up. Like Sharon said, we still have some things that we need to learn, but we've really kind of jumped in and developed, I think, a good, strong base of how we're going to proceed and where we need to go from here.
So before we move into the benefits documents, Kristen, can you tell me a little bit about how you learned about benefits so that you would be prepared to do this job? Because it's tricky.
Yeah, definitely. So I have gone through a intensive, it was 2 week long, about 2 or 3 hours a day, webinar series on work incentives. So helping people who do have Social Security benefits, what they're eligible for, if, to maintain a benefit while working. And so during that training, a lot of information just about Social Security, disability benefits, and then also SSI benefits and what can affect them, and how to restart the benefits if, work starts to go, if your hours get lessened, and how you can get your benefits back and that sort of thing. So that was the jumping off point, the first really in-depth training that I did, and then we're still adding in more and more throughout the next couple months.
Yeah, I've taken some of that training and it goes in one ear and out the other. So again, I couldn't say this enough time. I'm so excited about having you in this role. This is the format we're going to go in. We're going to talk about more general information about benefits like SSI versus SSDI and Medicaid and Medicare. And then we're going to go into a section about benefits and working so that we can answer some specific questions about that. Without further ado, I'm going to open up the overview sheet and we can go ahead and dig in on this. All right, so Kristen, we're going to start off talking about what is the difference between Social Security disability insurance and supplemental security insurance. How do I know which one it is I'm supposed to be applying for?
Wonderful. So this one can get tricky, but it's easy to kind of think about it as two different things. So Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, is a Title II benefit. So these are benefits that you get from working. So Social Security Disability, and some folks might get just traditional SSA, where they can pull that off of a parent's working history, but those all come out of a federal trust fund. So while you're working, as you all know, maybe, hopefully, you have money taken out of your paychecks and they go into your Social Security. It's a trust fund that then once you retire, you can pull the money out of. Now, Social Security Disability Insurance, you can pull out of before you retire if you go through all the steps to be determined disabled by Social Security. So, let's say you're working, something happens and you're not able to work anymore, and you are deemed disabled by Social Security, you can start pulling out of that trust fund then. The amount that you can pull from it kind of depends on the amount that you have worked, the number of hours that you've put in so far. So it's being determined disabled by Social Security, there are different steps that you have to go through. They will have doctor's sheets for your doctor to fill out. You do have to go through health information. You do have to go through financial information. And then once they go through all of that and process it, and they deem you disabled, then you can start pulling with that Social Security Disability Insurance.
And is
SSI,
SSDI
yes.
the one that you get a death benefit if you've got a parent who has worked and put money into it?
Yes, absolutely. So if a child who is disabled, they call it a childhood disability benefit, even though it's for an adult child. So you have parents who are working, they've contributed money to their trust fund, the Social Security Trust Fund, and then they retire. As long as their child has their disability before the age of 22, they can then pull money from that parent's Social Security. Doesn't mean that the parents are necessarily going to get less Social Security. They'll still get their chunk that they're eligible for. It's just another part of that money that goes out to the child. Again, though, important part is that disability has to be determined by Social Security to be before the age of 22. If a parent does pass away, there is also a Social Security death benefit that can be taken for the child as well. And with that, typically, a couple times I've seen it, Social Security has been pretty good about being on top of that. So a parent passes away, they know that they had been pulling their Social Security for themselves and for their child. they're usually pretty good about sending out a document saying, you know, we're sorry for your loss. You are eligible for this for the death benefit, and you fill that out, send it back in. Sometimes you play a little bit of a waiting game, but that should start pretty quickly after you send it back in.
Wonderful. I already feel like I know more. All right. So supplemental security insurance.
So this one gets to be a little tricky. This one, so SSI, or Supplemental Security Insurance, is for your folks who aren't working and don't have that federal trust fund money that they've put away yet. They could work and they could start, you know, contributing to that and then eventually pull from your SSDI, but SSI is typically state funded. And this one is made to supplement living expenses. So just like the name says, it's to add in, you know, to go towards rent and utilities and food and clothing, all of your necessary day-to-day living items that you might need. That's what SSI is meant to do. It's meant to supplement your income. So SSI can be, a child with disabilities can be eligible for SSI. They do have to go through this, a lot of the same disability tests, if you will, as an adult would. So they, as for a child to receive SSI, Social Security will want to see that the disability really hinders their day-to-day life experiences. So they're not necessarily going to look at, you know, work history or education history, obviously, because there isn't a lot of that, but they're going to look to see if all the steps that they're progressing, childhood steps, development steps are being met, or if they are lacking. You'll still go through all the medical. SSI does look at some parents' incomes. So just like if we're supporting or if you have a child with a disability that lives with you, as a parent, you are using some of your money, obviously, to support your child. So Social Security will look at parents' income and resources when determining eligibility. So that's called deeming. And within that, SSI or Social Security has their own rules. They don't look at every single penny. Easy way to describe it is they look at about half of what a parent's income or resources are. So it's not going to be every single 100% everything that you own. It's only good once they go through, they have an equation of what they break down, and it comes out to be about half of the parent's incomes or resources.
But that's only if you are under 18, correct?
Yep.
That's one of the things I do know and that I answer most often is that when you are completing this application for a child over 18 and over, even if they live in your home and eat your food, you consider them somebody living in your house that's an adult that has their own finances. And I think that's a mistake families make when they pursue this, is that they put too much information on the application that's about them as opposed to just their child.
And that's a huge thing to remember, is that when you are, as a parent or a guardian, when you are filling these out, making sure that you're filling them out for the person and not for yourself. Because yes, as soon as you hit 18, SSI changes just a little bit. Typically, you won't have to go through the whole application process. Once somebody does reach the age of 18, there will be usually a disability review. And so Social Security will send you some documents to fill out and just kind of readdress where everything is once they've hit that 18th birthday. And then SSI changes just a little bit. As somebody starts to work, then we want to make sure that we're reporting those wages, because again, just like before when I was explaining the parents' income is usually about half of what they count. Once somebody is 18 and begins working, their income also needs to be reported. But SSI, again, typically, it only counts about half of your earned income as income for your benefits. With SSI, there are asset limits, $2,000 as of the first of the month. So if you do a disability review and you're sending in information and you have $2,070, SSI will ask for that $70 back. So SSI will ask for money back for overpayment. And so that's why it's really important to make sure that any kind of change in either in living situation or somebody receives, a large gift of money, or even if they just start working and they're working a lot of hours, that those are being reported to Social Security, because at least with SSI, Social Security will then adjust the amount of benefit that you're getting. And that way it'll help you kind of stay within the limits, and then also not have to worry about an overpayment, which can kind of hurt somebody, especially if they're not making a lot of money.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask my other questions till we get to the employment page. I'm going to shift us over to the next column, I think, unless there's something else in this column that you want to talk about. I noticed up here it says if Social Security benefits are awarded, Medicaid is typically applied for automatically. So that's one of those tips we give families, is if they're considering applying for benefits, it's probably better if you want Social Security benefits to go there first, because then the Medicaid's going to fall into place. Whereas if you apply for Medicaid and get it, you're going to have to start from scratch with the SSI application.
Definitely. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that one. It's nice. It's a kind of a nice little perk, if you will, when you do apply for those Social Security benefits. So when you're typically going to apply for SSI, I think is probably the most common Social Security benefit that you'll apply for, unless you have those other little SSDI or childhood disability benefit add in there. But usually the SSI, and then that should flow right into Medicaid. And that's our next column. So Medicaid and Medicare. Medicaid in Missouri is called HealthNet. And this can support, it's another support for low-income families and children. With Medicaid, there is an asset limit, which is $5,000. So if someone has their assets are more than that, then typically they won't be approved for Medicaid. And especially for folks who are supported by some of those waivers that we have in place, those HCBS waivers, that's why that's important that we watch that limit, because those are funded from Medicaid, and we don't want to lose that Medicaid funding, therefore, disrupting any of our services that we might provide through those waivers. Medicaid has a special thing for people with disabilities. It's called a spend down. These can be a little confusing. I think the easiest way to think about it is think of it as an insurance premium. So, out of our paychecks, or if you don't have health insurance through the place you work, you pay a premium each month for your health insurance. And that's kind of what a spend down is. So you can either pay down your amount so that you meet that maximum level, benefit level, or you can submit medical bills into HealthNet each month, and that will also bring down your the amount that you your salary, your benefit level. Sorry.
Okay. Let me ask a quick question for clarification. Yep. So I can't have more than $5,000. Let's say I have $5,500. That $500 is what would be my spend down. Is that correct?
So
And
that
then
would,
how would I account for that $500 so I can keep my Medicaid? Do I have to pay them $500?
you would either, typically you would have to either pay that in, or if you have medical bills for that month that you can submit, you can submit those.
Okay.
So I've seen, both ways. It's here, especially at the ARC, we have spend downs that we pay each month for a lot of our folks, and we have a couple who submit their medical bills each month.
Okay. And those are medical bills that you pay out of pocket, not medical bills that Medicaid has picked up.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely. So then with HealthNet, there's the Children's Health Insurance Program, which is called CHIPS. And so if there is a family who their income is too high for Medicaid, this program can help a child get some of those Medicaid benefits as well. Again, different application process to go through in order to apply for that. Various things have to be submitted, but this is another program that can help get children the health insurance that they might need.
Right. And if I wanted to apply for these, where do I go to get the applications?
So on almost on everything, you can go to the Medicaid website or mydss.mo.gov, I think. And there's links for all of that.
Fantastic.
The Social Security website, as big as it is, actually has a lot of good information in there. And just even by searching in the search bar, you can, pull up a lot of helpful documents as you're going through all this application and learning process.
Great.
It's daunting, but it's helpful.
We did have a question about Medicare. Do you want to say anything about Medicare before I launch into the question?
Yeah, we can. So with Medicare, Medicare is for anybody who is over the age of 65 or older. Medicare should start automatically. However, if somebody has SSDI for 2 years or more, then so there's a 24-month waiting period, then they would be eligible for Medicare. So somebody could work for, maybe they work for 10, 20, 25 years and they retire before the age of 65, but they can still pull those Social Security disability benefits. After 24 months, they'll be eligible for Medicare as well. What's our question?
The question was, if I'm over the income limit for Medicare, but I have a life-threatening medical condition, is there a way for me to be able to get this benefit? So I don't know if this person is 65 years or older or not, but is there a financial cap for Medicare?
So for Medicare in general, not that I know of, and I know that they don't typically look at any pre-existing conditions. I know that for some of the Part A comes automatically with Medicare, but Part B, I know since you do pay a premium for Part B and Part D, and Part D is your prescriptions. So I know for some of Part B, your income level does kind of determine what that premium amount is going to be. But from what I have read, I've not seen an actual income limit for that Medicare piece, other than just increasing your premium if you do meet more than the actual, I think it's 83. If you make more than 83,000 a year, I think that premium amount does increase for the plan, the Part B. Yeah, if this person is over age of 65, Medicare should start automatically. You might have, if it's not in your window, you might have to wait until open enrollment before being able to apply again if you don't have it and you are over the age of 65.
Before we go to the final column, I just want to just take a brief moment to remind people that Missouri HealthNet is our state Medicaid health insurance. So when you're applying for Medicaid, that is to get health benefits. But as Kristen's noted here, there are many additional services that are leveraged through Medicaid by seeking a Medicaid waiver to get additional services if you have a disability. So just because you have Medicaid doesn't mean that you now have the funds available to pursue residential placement or a day program or some of those other services. So we talk about that in many different scenarios. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We'll touch on that at the end, but just know that if you want to seek out services, you need to get more information about how to get a Medicaid waiver.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to kind of separate in your brain.
That one I understand. I don't know why I can't get the other ones. So anything else you want to share? I see you've got the ABLE account on here.
Yes. So, we touched a little bit about asset limits, and once we get to working, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, it's with ABLE accounts are a great way to help somebody with a disability save money and not have their benefits be jeopardized. So ABLE account means achieving a better life experience. And this program was began in 1994, so it's been around for a while, and is starting to really establish itself as an ideal way for people to save money without their benefits being affected. So with an ABLE account, you also see them called stable, S-T-A-B-L-E, or here in Missouri, MO-ABLE. These are essentially, they're very similar to college saving plans. So they are savings accounts that can be opened up. You can put up to $15,000 a year in them with a $100,000 max before benefits will be suspended. So if you reach that $100,000 lifetime max, your benefits will only be suspended. They won't be terminated. So as soon as you knock that back down to right below that, benefits would start again. And the money that is put into an ABLE account can be used for any disability related expense. So again, can go towards rent, can go towards utilities, it can go towards assistive devices, anything that is making that person's life better.
Car to get to work.
Yeah, car to get to work, absolutely. And then also within that, a big question a lot of times is what happens when the person does pass away. So the cool thing about an ABLE account is first, you'll get to use, that money will go towards any funeral expenses, any outstanding doctor's bills. But then also, and this is again another thing that you report to Social Security once you open it, but they can only ask for repayment from the time that the account was opened. So if someone, has Medicaid waiver in place and, they're asking for any of that money back, they can only ask for any of the ABLE account money saved from the time that it was open. So if you've had supports for decades and decades and decades, but you only just opened an ABLE account 6 months ago and unfortunately passed away, that's the only period of time that ABLE money can be repaid.
So to be clear for families out there, if you have sheltered your money in an ABLE account and you pass away, they can go back and reclaim money for funds that you utilize through eligibility-based services like Social Security and Medicaid. So that's something to keep in mind. I still think it's an amazing program. and really a wonderful way to not only save money, but to have money accessible to you. You can have a special needs trust and an ABLE account, but an ABLE account, you have a lot more control about getting into it and getting money out when you need it, which is really nice, and not having to go through a trustee. I want to ask a clarifying question with the ABLE account. If I'm a young person with a disability and I get Social Security benefits and I make $3,000 a month, can I put some of my money in the ABLE account before the first of the month so that my resource limit doesn't exceed 2,000?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it's there for.
So it's not just other
So
people's gifts. I can put my own
nope.
money in that account.
Yep.
Okay.
And it can, so at least at the ARC, we have it set up so that our residents funds come right from their accounts that we manage. So we can transfer it. We have bank account. You can set up a bank account and essentially just like you would transfer money from your checking account to your savings account, transfer it right over. And usually 48 hours, it transfers. And yeah, it's very, very quick and very helpful to have, especially if you do only have that SSI. So even if you do just have that $2,000 limit each month, especially now with stimulus checks coming and everything, it's easy to reach that very quickly.
That is a really good point. I do want to also say for families out there, one of the cool things about the ABLE account is that they've set up a capped debit card. So you can say, okay, my family member is going to draw down $50 a month onto the debit card, and it won't spend more than 50. So it's a great way to start building your own confidence and competence at making your own purchases. So just put that out there too. I think sometimes we forget about food stamps and eligibility for food stamps for people. Do we have a lot of folks that use those, Kristen?
At the ARC, we have quite a few. We have 52 of our people that we support do have food stamps. Yeah, food stamps are a fantastic way to also kind of save a little bit of money, especially again right now, at least until June. It might be extended again. Food stamp limits have your food stamp amount is 10% more than it traditionally would be with COVID. And they keep kind of increasing that. So it's kind of, it's been nice for folks who do have food stamps because they're getting a little bit more per month than they typically would. But so again, yeah, food stamps are a great benefit to apply for, to get, just a little bit extra money towards food that you need each month. With food stamps, you do have to reapply each year. The renewal process is super quick and easy. And with the food stamps, you do also have an asset limit of $3,500 a month. But then again, if you have that ABLE account, you can move money over and keep it in there as well.
Great. I'm going to back us up because I do have 2 questions about spend down. No surprise there because it's always so tricky. Do you have to pay the spend down each month?
Yes.
And it's each month that you're over that income cap, correct?
Yes. So whenever you are over that amount, you'll pay that spend down. So typically they'll send you an invoice and you pay that, whatever that amount is. It doesn't typically change very frequently at all. Currently, they are also frozen for COVID. So I don't have much information on when that might end. But yes, so spend downs are paid each month. You are given an invoice which will tell you the amount that you're due.
And if you don't have any medical bills, if you're over the $5,000 limit, you still have to pay the spend down, correct? There's not a waiver if you don't have any medical expenses.
I don't believe there's a waiver. No. You would just spend that.
Okay.
or pay that.
I want to ask you, but while we transition to the next page, a little bit about your experience with some of the changes that have occurred around COVID with changes in the caps and the stimulus payments. And we've got a question about taxes. So can you just give us some general tips about things to be looking out for related to COVID? And I'm going to switch over while you do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some, more generous things that Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare have done because of COVID. And there's been some that, as great as it is, has been a little harder to deal with. So, with our folks, everybody is getting stimulus checks. However, those asset limits haven't increased. So, if someone has food stamps and they can only have that $3,500 a month, or $3,500 for their asset limit, but then they get a stimulus check for $1,200, that's almost half of it right there. So that's been, one of the downfalls is that asset limit hasn't increased. However, you do technically have a year to spend it. So for a year, right now, we haven't, like for us at the ARC, no one's gotten the $1,400 yet. But that $1,200 that they got last May is about to essentially expire. So for the last year, we've been able to count, let's say somebody has SSI, which is $2,000 limit per month. Essentially, we could count $3,200 as their limit for a year. But now that year is expiring. So if, we've been counting it, and they haven't spent it, now's our, time. We got to spend it now.
So I'm going to just jump in because we just had a question about stimulus checks. So my understanding of what you just said is that they are not going to count that against your cap for 1 year. So you've got some time to spend it, or you could put it into an ABLE account where it's protected.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yep.
So
and then also, I was going to say,
also
along COVID lines, a lot of the reapplying for Medicaid's been frozen, and they're doing that. From what I can see, they're doing that kind of internally when we reapply for food stamps. So that's kind of been a little bit of a benefit as well.
Good. Okay. Well, the other question we had that was more general was about taxes and what determines whether somebody is a dependent on your taxes, and how can you get the right advice for what they can get from tax refunds and stimulus, and also how you claim them on your taxes. And I know this isn't particularly what you've been trained with. So you guys should always consult with a CPA or contact the ARC. We always have AARP members help us out with tax benefits. But Kristen, I know you did find a resource about this on the IRS's webpage.
So there's one that I found that has been just helpful, just like with general knowledge for myself. With a child, as a parent with a child with a disability, an adult child with a disability, you can claim them to an extent if you, cheating and looking over at my sheet, you can claim them to extent if, regardless of age, as long as they have been determined disabled by Social Security, and that it has been determined to be a permanent disability. So again, that has to go through, they're not meeting that, we'll talk about that in a second, substantial gainful activity limit, that their doctor has considered it to, be a permanent disability. That'll be last, I think, at least a year or lead to death, unfortunately. And then there's also, you might be able to have, if they are in a sheltered workshop, you might be able to have another help from that as well.
So let's dig in a little bit, because another big myth is I don't want to lose my SSI benefits, so I can only work 15 hours a week, or I can't work at all. What are some of the things that you can help us sort out around supplemental security insurance and work?
So I think one thing you just said is a big thing for everybody to kind of get out of your brain to an extent, is it's not about hours. It's about your income. So there are, you can work all the hours in the world, but it's all about your income. So it's whatever that, your hourly rate is that you're making each month. So SSI will look at your gross wages each month, and then determine your benefit based on that. So for SSI, they have the max amount that you will get per month as an SSI benefit is $794. So with that, your actual benefit amount will kind of fluctuate month to month, kind of depending on the amount of income that you submit to Social Security. With SSI, there are a lot of work incentives that are in place to help you continue to get your benefit, but then also work and make money. Social Security, when determining your benefit amount for the month, I said it before, they don't count everything that you're turning in. So if you submit 3 paychecks and it's $300 of total that you made for the month, they have a whole formula that they use. They subtract $20 and they subtract $65. Then they divide it in half. And then, so there's a lot of different steps that they take. So that $300, now we're down to like maybe $140. So, they're only looking at a part of your actual income when determining your benefit level. So you can have that in actuality, it's $300, but for Social Security's, in Social Security's view, it might have only been 120 or 140. So then they're going to subtract that from your benefit level, 794. And then that remainder is what your benefit's going to be for that month. And then you'd still also have that $300. So now you've almost gotten, let's go with 900. It's going to be around 800 or 900. So there's, like I said, they don't look at everything that you're actually submitting when you do submit those pay stubs to Social Security each month. There are different things in place with Social Security so that, well, let's back up. This top of that third column, substantial gainful activity. This is SGA is what Social Security uses as an income limit. It's something Social Security comes up with each year, it changes, and it is what they use to determine if you are making enough money to essentially support yourself without that cash benefit coming in. So, like I said, level changes yearly. This year, it's $1,310 per month. If you're making more than that, Social Security feels that you are essentially gainfully employed, that you are meeting that substantial gainful activity. So when you do meet that level, benefits will usually just be suspended. They don't typically stop unless you're there for year after year after year after year. I think with SSDI, it's up to 5 years that you have where your benefit is just kind of paused, it's suspended. But as soon as you start making under that amount again, your benefits will come back. So again,
I think that's really important, because I think we have so many individuals that for whatever reason have a very up and down employment history, where maybe they do an incredible job and bring in some great income, and then manager changes or something happens and they either lose hours or lose a job entirely. So Social Security understands that and builds in a grace period where you may not be getting money when you're making the big bucks, but you are also not cut out of the program and having to start over.
Yeah. And that's giant, to have those in place. I think SSI work incentives are probably what's more common right now, probably with the folks that we have joining in, unless somebody's already worked and already contributed to that Social Security fund. We're probably looking more at SSI work incentives. There's a couple different programs in place. PASS is a great program for folks who are working and they have kind of a goal that they want to reach, a work-related goal. That could be something like taking college classes that go along with whatever their career is. It could be something, I've seen a couple examples where, somebody who needed to buy a car to get themselves to and from work. So this program allows you to put aside money to achieve these goals. And then that money, just like, everybody has a support plan, we do have to develop a plan. There's a whole plan in place in order to achieve the goal. And it does need to be documented on, notes need to be taken. But when you do have a PASS plan in place, that money, so we talked about your SSI income, when you're submitting your wages, they're only counting about half of it. The monthly amount for your PASS monthly amount that you're saving, that also gets taken out. So now, again, you have a whole nother chunk of money being taken out of before SSI or Social Security will count your benefits. So you're still now going to get probably a little bit more money from your SSI benefit, in addition to working, in addition to saving for whatever you're saving with the PASS plan.
PASS is so underutilized, but at least when they started PASS plans decades ago, it was a very difficult thing to get your PASS plan accepted. So if somebody on this Zoom feels like they have something to request in a PASS plan, who writes that? How do they do it?
So that will come with your benefit coordinator. So your whoever your benefit specialist is, they can help you write that. So in Missouri, or at least in St. Louis, we have a WIPA person, Work Incentive Provider Agency, and that's within Paraquad. And they have benefit specialists that can help you write that plan and help submit it to Social Security. Hopefully down the line, that will be me. But we'll get there.
That's great. So Paraquad is a sister organization. We're happy to give you a link to their resources, but that PASS plan is a great opportunity, again, to set aside a chunk of that money that doesn't get counted against your benefits. So really nice option. Can you talk a little bit about a 1619B?
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to jump to, because that's another huge aspect also for people with SSI. So like we mentioned before, with the SSI, with Social Security benefits, Medicaid is applied for automatically. And that Medicaid can be very, very helpful as health insurance. This is just the health insurance one for people, for everybody. So with 1619B, let's say somebody is working, they start reaching that break-even point. They're making more than that SGA limit. 1619B helps you keep your Medicaid. So this protects you from losing your Medicaid, even if your cash payments stop. So again, it's going into 1619B, you're submitting your pay stubs month after month. Social Security sees that you're above that, you're at that break-even point, you're at that substantial gainful activity point, and cash payments stop, but then you can request to be entered into 1619B. Technically, it's supposed to happen automatically. I suggest to always just say, please put me into 1619B so that you're covering yourself. So this status allows you, even if you're not getting your cash benefit, your Medicaid coverage will still continue to be in place. You do have to continue to meet all the other eligibility requirements. So your disability still has to be in place, and anything else that Social Security, has in that requirement. But it's a great benefit to have as well.
Great. So everybody out there, if you want to sound really cool, the impairment related work expense, the people in the know call that an IRWE. So what would be an example of an IRWE expense that I could use to deduct from my income?
I think easiest one for our folks, everybody on the call who has people who work, would probably be transportation. So that's whether it's call a ride or, if you have other transportation providers that you're paying for. So it's not coming out of any DMH waiver funding, but if you're paying for call a ride out of the pocket to get to work, that's a great one. And also, if somebody with, you have a child with autism who is working and they take their iPad to work to communicate, that's another one that you can use there too. So it can be, those communication, anything that's going to help you do your job, you can use as an ROE.
And it says it has to be approved by Social Security. So what does that process look like?
So that also is it's fairly easy from everything that I've seen. Again, just going through that, your benefit specialist person, and really just justifying why you have to be able to justify it. Justify why I need to take my iPad to work, because if I get excited, I have trouble using my words, and it's easier for me to use it. So going through that benefit specialist and justifying it, and then sending it into your Social Security representative.
Excellent. I just think this is such a great worksheet because it breaks down some of the specifics that people need to look for, but then also so much of the language is really bureaucratic, and you have to really understand what it is people are talking about. So we've got some common terms here, also some websites, and I just like to direct people, Disability 101, what will they find if they go to mo.db101.org?
That is another fantastic website. It has almost anything with working and maintaining benefits, or just information about how to turn in your pay stubs each month. Like, how do I go about that? How do I even just like general definitions, what Social Security is, what there's some tax information in there. There's a lot of different just helpful hints, and walks you through step by step anything that you can really dream of in regards to working with a disability.
I really love that site, and it's got a calculator too. So if you're not sure how your money is all going to play out, if you're thinking about taking a cool new job, you can drop some numbers in there and see. So if you've never been on that website, folks that are paying attention here, go check it out, play with it a little bit. I think you'll like it. I'm just going to show you what this third page looks like so that you can ask for some guidance. But when we start talking to people about accessing waivers, this form walks through what each waiver pays for and what the cap of dollars attached to it are. It's got eligibility on here, and then it also has sort of a breakdown about how to move forward to get that, some common language, and some helpful websites. So 3 really useful tools that Kristen's provided us with that I think are going to be things that you go back to over and over again. Now, when you talk to your family resource specialist, you're going to find somebody that that actually might know what they can do to help you out. Hopefully, I'm going to be better informed the more I work with Kristen, and then I can turn to her for some of the special situations. So what did we not talk about that you wanted to share? What advice do you have for individuals with disabilities and parents about benefits? Go for it.
I mean, I think the last thing to say really is, as big as it seems and as overwhelming as it can be, If you have a son or a daughter or somebody you're supporting that wants to work, give it a shot. I mean, I think that's so important. And, you know, even if it's 6 months, even if it's a year, or even if, you know, you start going through all of, you know, supported employment steps and it's not going to work, at least, you know, for that person, I think it's really important to like embrace that and, you know, support them and, you know, working, because there's so many things in place that, you know, can keep those benefits coming and keep them going, even if they're not making a lot, but at least their quality of life and what they want to have is being done. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is as daunting as it is, there's a lot of help out there. So there's a lot of resources, and just ask instead of, you know, just be okay to ask. It's great. Thanks, everybody.